Leonard Hamilton's done after this year, and I got to know, where have all the ACC coaches gone?
You're talking ball with the ACC squad, sponsored by Game Time. From Florida State to North Carolina, from Syracuse to Miami, and from NC State to California, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming ACC weekend. Hang on, it could get loud, it could get heated, and it will definitely be fun. Squad up, you're part of the ACC squad.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into this week's episode of the ACC squad. We got a packed house, minus our usual host, Mr. ACC Alex Dono. He's gone, so all the rest of us are coming out to play. You know it, Miami. They suck at basketball right now. They did win their first ACC game, but Dono is nowhere to be found. Boys, it's good to be together today. We've got Jackson Holzer locked on Syracuse, Kenton Gibbs locked on Wolfpack, Grayson Boone locked on Wolfpack, Mr. JJ Jackson from some show that I'm not sure, no, from Locked On Blue Devils, running the table on all of us, and Mr. Dalton Pence from Locked On Louisville, whose Wi-Fi is guaranteed to stay in. Thank you all so much for joining us here on this episode of ACC Squad, man. It is great to be together. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All of our great shows are all part of our great network, Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Isaac Shade, host of Locked On Tar Heels, and our man, Jarvis Davis, behind the scenes, producing all of this great work. So, boys, the news came out on Monday, and we got a lot of basketball to talk today. We're over the halfway point of the ACC schedule. Duke is still undefeated. Who's second best? Is it Clemson or Louisville? Well, part of that we're going to find out this weekend because Duke is visiting Littlejohn Coliseum. That'll be great. But the big news from Monday, Leonard Hamilton, we probably knew this was coming at some point, but now it's official. After this season, Leonard Hamilton will be out the door. It is the third ACC coach just this season to call it quits. It is now 7 renowned ACC coaches since the end of the 2021 season. Tony Bennett, Virginia. Jim Boeheim, Syracuse. Pour one out for Holzer. Mike Bray at Notre Dame. Leonard Hamilton now. Coach K from JJ's Blue Devils. Jimmy L from Dono's Canes. And, of course, Roy Williams started this whole thing, leaving the Tar Heels after the 21 season. Guys, the big question I want to ask to get things going today, and we'll see who's going to buy the first round. Tony Bennett calls it quits immediately. Jim Larrañaga immediately. Leonard Hamilton says, I'm going to give it the rest of the year. Who did it right?
Oh, Hamilton by a mile. All of the rest of those guys left their teams in the lurch. The least that you could do. Not only did he do right by his players, he did right by the program. He did right by future recruits because there is no uncertainty. Let's look at the way that the other guys did it. Because even if you wanted to make the argument that Leonard Hamilton had done something wrong here, let's just look at the way that the other guys did it. Fellas, Tony Bennett went to ACC Media Days, correct?
He did.
Yep, he did.
And between ACC Media Days and the damn tip-off of the season, he decided, oh, no, these third-string point guards asking for 20,000. I'm done. I'm good. I don't see what I need to see. You know, and then Jim Larrañaga, he didn't even do it before the season. He said, hey, we getting belted behind. I don't like this. They keep telling me move my head. I don't know what that means. That's that young kid lingo. I'm good here, and decide to quit mid-season. So if any of them have any type of claim that they've done it right, even if you would make the argument of, well, the lawsuits that are against him make it different and make it special, even still, he's deciding, I don't want to be a distraction. I don't want to detract from this team and this program. I'm going to bow out gracefully. And the biggest part of all this, he's a 76-year-old on the last year of his contract. This seems much more like a handshake agreement between him and Florida State. Like, hey, you're done here, but we'll let you go out on your own terms because you left FSU basketball in a much better place than you found it. So to me, Leonard Hamilton by him.
He's the oldest out of all of them. That's what's, if you want to play the age card with everything changing, Leonard Hamilton's 76, you got Larrañaga 75, and of course Tony Bennett still had a lot of life left into him. So it's crazy that the older statesman still currently in the ACC going into the season is the one that's holding on the longest and is going to go throughout the rest of the year.
It's also the fact that Tony Bennett and Jimmy L, as Isaac called him, they cited NIL was the reason why they decided to leave, and that they were tired of the NIL. And so I don't buy it. And the reason why I don't buy it is because, well, what changed? If you were tired of the NIL, then why didn't you just leave at the end of the last season? Why does Tony Bennett decide to call it quits right before the regular season starts? I got news for Tony Bennett. Nothing changes between weeks before the season starts and when the actual season starts. As far as the Miami coach, yeah, like what changes during the season? Nothing changes during the season except that you found out that your team is not very good. So
what's the letter of Larinaga's last name? That's what started changing for Miami basketball. Came in, said, nope, I'm going to get going. It was a little bit spineless.
Man. It's really not even about the sport at that point. Is can you see through to the end of the year and not quit something right in the middle of it? I mean, and that might be the same case with Tony Bennett as well to an extent. It's like, yeah, I realize that my team's not that good. I'm going to go ahead and bow out now. It's coward work, fellas. It's being a coward, especially Jim's situation. That's even worse to me than the other two. Yes. At least, and I say this at least like a silver lining, at least Tony Bennett gave Ron Sanchez the decency to give him a couple weeks. Jim did it in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just coward work to me. I don't care. I don't care what you say. If it's not a health issue, then there's no rationale that you can make that I'm going to respect. That's how it is.
And it's not like this NIL thing just suddenly appeared. It was July of 2021 is when this really became a thing. So when you look back at Roy Williams or Mike Krzyzewski, Jim Boeheim even, they had more of a runway where they said, this is coming. I'm getting older. I don't want to do this. Now's the time to go. Whereas these other coaches are wanting to state NIL is the big reason for that. You've been doing this for a couple of years now. There hasn't been any major differences from when it was first introduced in college basketball to where it's at now. More to kind of Dalton's point, you're taking the coward's way out. Your team's not good. I'm out of here.
Yep.
And love them, hate them, indifferent. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Okay, well, love them, hate them, indifferent. The way that all the coaches you just talked about, Boeheim at Syracuse, all the oddities that went into that retiring, firing, whatever that was, all of the fanfare that went into Coach K's farewell tour, Roy Williams and kissing the court before he walked up. All of those guys did it at the end of the season. It was declared, it was definitive, declarative. It was no interpretation of, oh, yeah, Roy's going to be back next year. Everybody knew. It was, oh, yeah, Coach K's having a farewell tour, and every player from the Brotherhood is here together. Like, there's no Coach K is going to be back next year. Jim Boeheim, again, even with everything that went into that, it was still not a hot, cold, yes, no, maybe. It was, hey, he's probably not coming back. That's what everybody's feeling like here, and that's what happened. So, again, that kind of, oh, we're going to wait up till the last minute, and then we're going to pull out and say, oh, NIL just got us. The NIL bandit strikes again. It's like the meme of the guy from Detroit is saying, we're all trying to figure out who's responsible for this. That is how I'm looking at these coaches.
And you said pull out, man. That's not always the recipe. It doesn't always work. I know plenty of people got kids from trying to do it. Man, that's not always your best option. Look, here's the thing, fellas. Mike Bray did the same thing as what Leonard Hamilton's doing here, right? Like said, I'm going to be done at the end of this year. And so we'll let that keep rolling and see how we go with that as well. And let's keep in mind also, Leonard Hamilton is being sued by a bunch of his former players right now, right? So that's a real thing that we're reckoning with too. Here's where I want to take this conversation next, guys. Our longest tenured head coaches right now. Anybody know who the next two longest tenured are?
Brad Brownell's number one.
Yes, he is. Anybody know who number two is? At least two of you should.
Is it Kevin Keats?
Number two.
Kevin Keats is now number two. Brad Brownell since the 2010-11 season. Kevin Keats since 2017-18. After that, every current ACC coach has been at their school since only the 1920 season or more recent. We are in a brand new era of ACC in the same moment as we're trying to keep up and compete with the SECs and Big 12s and Big 10s. What is the immediate and future for our league?
The immediate has to be making the right hires. And I made a point on this in Locked on Louisville is a rising tide raises all ships. That's and right. There were some Louisville fans that I kind of talked with in a Discord, and they're like, we need them to make the wrong hires. I said, the hell we do. We need them to make the right hires because what's happening to the ACC, same side on football, it's getting completely put off to the side. Louisville lost to Georgia Tech and dropped 2 spots in the bracketology. SEC team loses, they might jump a spot. Of course, I say that jokingly, but all good jokes contain true sentiments. So it's a matter of if you make the right hires, and there could be up to about 6 openings at the end of the year, no lie. We need the ACC to make good hires here.
You're absolutely right, because there used to be a saying that it was harder to win the Big East regular season title than the actual NCAA tournament. There used to be a world where that existed. So you're absolutely right. You've got to make it so that every team is really, really good, or most teams are really, really good, so that when you do lose a game, it doesn't completely kill you in the net rankings and it doesn't kill you in the bracketologies.
Which is why I think so much recently on these hires that have been made. And I'm the Duke guy. I know this, Mr. Elite over here. But when you look at the kind of transition period that Duke had, I don't think there's a reason they're at the top, right? There's a reason that they had this year-long transition period announcing that John Shire would take over for Mike Krzyzewski. It's the other schools. Y'all had the blueprint. I don't know why these other schools didn't adopt.
Syracuse tried the blueprint. It didn't work.
Well, first thing first, I would like to say nobody called JJ Mr. Elite but himself. So let's not have any misgivings about that. But now, moving forward from there, I mean, I 1,000% agree, but I 1,000% disagree all at once. Let me tell you why, JJ. I think the problem is that all of the ACC gene pools are too incestuous in terms of the coaches. Get out of your damn coaching tree to find your replacement. Stop trying to replace you with baby you. The game is different. If the game passed you by, why would you then say, I know what this university needs to stay relevant? A watered down, less good version of me. No, go get somebody that is ready and ripe and primed for this era of doing things. We all of our schools, except for NC State, because we haven't hired a new coach since the NIL thing has come into place, have had a chance to say, we're going to go get a guy that is really good in this environment, really good in the portal, really good with all that goes into it now. But everybody said, I know what I'll do. Hey, we got this Hubert guy on staff. Hey, there's, and Louisville saw it the worst in terms of not even a guy that was on staff, but just like, oh, he's a former player here. This should work out great for us. No, expand your gene pool. Go get somebody that thinks different, does it different, and look at how well it's working out for damn Louisville in 1 year. They're about to get their worst to first story, even though they're not quite first because there's a guy named Cooper Flagg. But if it wasn't for him being born, they'd have their worst to first story.
It just works for Duke. That's all I'm saying.
There you go.
Right. Look, that is a great point, JJ. It has worked for Duke in that regard. But Pat Kelsey coming in from Charleston, man, what a thing. And it also, I'll make this point and then we'll move on, does away with all the I need a couple years to get my guys in and get my stuff going. In the portal era, in the NIL era, you can flip this in 1 year. Pat Kelsey is living proof of that right now. Speaking of JJ the elitist, we got to talk about Duke, who is currently running the table. Can they continue to do so? And who's just behind the Blue Devils? Is it Clemson? Is it Louisville? That's the conversation we'll have coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about our good friends at Game Time. Hey, are you looking for tickets to your next big event? Well, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, sporting event, whatever, you can find the right ticket at the right price, and it doesn't have to be a headache any longer, because with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app, man, it does all the work for you. Curates the best deals. You don't have to then spend time wasting away searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and it's so helpful. Maybe you want to find some tickets for an upcoming game. The highlight of the ACC slate this upcoming weekend, Duke at Clemson, Little John Coliseum, Saturday at 6 p.m. It's a little hefty to get in the door, but you can do so for just $213. And guess what? That is the price, because I toggled on all-in pricing, so no surprise fees on the back end. It's all right there. So you are covered also with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. Find a better deal somewhere else, you will get refunded 110%. So are you ready to make your next event even better? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, we are over halfway through the ACC slate now. Most teams have played 11 games. And right now, the Duke Blue Devils, number 2 in the nation, are number 1 in the ACC, unblemished. And in their remaining 9 ACC games per KenPom, they are favored to win 7 of those by 90% favorability. And only 2 games in which it's less than 90% is the regular season finale at Carolina, where they're favored by 80%. And Saturday's matchup at Clemson, where it's 69%. I'm going to make somebody else other than JJ start this conversation. Will the Duke Blue Devils be 20-0 heading into the ACC tournament?
Well, I just find this really funny. I mean, we're airing this on Thursday. Duke has a game on Wednesday, in case you all don't know that. So, something ridiculous could happen in theory. Is it going to happen? No. I can't even keep a straight face. They're probably going to run the table, but if they're going to lose a game, I think it would be at Clemson.
Yeah, this will be the day that the bug defeats the windshield, Jackson. It'll happen. We've been rooting for that mighty bug all along. You saw the B movie like I did. We all rooted for Jerry Seinfeld. Absolutely not. I think that this team runs the table. A couple weeks ago, I said that they were going to have a slip up. They were going to have a moment. But the way that they put belt to behind on UNC, oh, man, I had to call Isaac during the game. I said, hey, how's the Jerry curl? How you kids? Is everything okay? I hope you've been taking shelter. Let's just any shade of dark blue coming around you. I know you might have PTSD because I'll tell you what, that moment at the end of the first half, Cooper Flag goes up court, he picks up his dribble, looking for a pass, and then just hits that little fadeaway. I was like, hey, that boy too good. Yeah, that's some witchcraft right there. That's some of that Chiefs devil magic that he got on his hands. Yeah, or maybe it's just blue devil magic, but that boy has been cooking. And I'll tell you what, that team from top to bottom, every time I think like, oh, they're primed for a letdown, they just prove themselves to be better and better and better and more locked in each game, it seems like. So, I have a hard time seeing any team beat them. But I will say this, Clemson is a good enough shooting team to where if they get hot and Duke struggles to get them even in their 2-3 zone, Duke struggles to cause enough problems for their shooters to where they're still shooting out, Clemson could do it. But I think they're the only team that's got a shot. With all due respect,
Kenton, you and Grayson had a 15-point lead in the first half, man.
Worry about yourself, JJ. That's what you do. Okay.
And then Malawach puked everywhere, and then they're the game.
And you know what? You may call yourself Mr. Elite, but last time I checked, the defending ACC champs are in Raleigh. The last Final Four in Raleigh, okay? So worry about yourself, JJ. That's what you do.
All right, JJ, let's give you the floor to answer the question. Yes or no? Will Duke run the floor? Run the floor? Yes, they will run the floor, but will they run the table?
Yeah, they run it quite well. I think so at this point in the year, just given what you laid out, Isaac. I mean, that's what I'm looking at all the time is kind of KenPom and these metrics and the fact that it is so overwhelmingly a favorite for Duke to do this, to go 20-0. But that just doesn't seem plausible in my head that a 20-game season, you're going to win all of them. But when I look at this Duke roster, a lot of people are talking about Cooper Flag, and rightfully so. He is absolutely ascending. But everyone else on the roster is doing that as well. Con Knippel has not talked about enough with what he's been able to do over the last few weeks. Tyrese Proctor is really finding his footing as of late. Common Malawach, I apologize that he got sick against the Wolfpack. He was having flashbacks from recruiting visits when NC State's knocking him out of the Final Four and whatnot from years prior. But he continues to get better each and every game. This team, beyond Cooper Flag, continues to prove and find different ways to win.
That's what's Malik Brown's back and healthy.
Yes, and adding that to your defense is crazy.
Yeah, sorry, Jackson.
The last thing that got away in finding ways to win. It doesn't matter what kind of game you throw at them. If it's high scoring, they can beat you in a shootout. Low scoring, they can beat you in a rock fight. If it's on the road, they can take you on the road. At home, it's going to be difficult to beat them in Cameron. NC State made you think they had a shot for about 25 minutes. Then that went out the door. You'd be hard pressed to find a more complete team than Duke right now. And that's even before you get into all the Cooper Flag talk. Just he's outstanding. Outstanding. I've never seen a more complete player at Duke. And there's a long list of players that you'd have to go through to find the number one guy. Cooper Flag is unbelievable. And this team, it seems like they're only still getting better. They have not even reached their peak yet. And we're nearly at the end of the regular season. I have Duke winning the ACC regular season title because I just don't see anyone challenging them for it.
I'm just begging the selection committee to have Duke and Auburn on opposite sides of the bracket. There's no guarantees, obviously, but I would love that rematch on a neutral court. They are far and away the best two teams in the nation right now. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff. The best, by the way, regular season finish we've ever had in the 20-game ACC era is 17-3, set last year by North Carolina. Seems like Duke
I knew you'd find a way to bring that up. I knew you'd find a way to bring that up.
But I bring it up to say
one of those teams that beat North Carolina last year just so happened to be Syracuse.
That's right. But I bring it up to say that's getting shattered this year, JJ. So there you go. Okay, now the other thing is last year in college basketball, the talk was Zach Edey is the runaway front runner for National Player of the Year. So if Zach Edey wasn't in college basketball, who would win the award? And it's the same question right now for us in the ACC. If Duke wasn't part of this, who would win the ACC? And right now that's a conversation between Louisville, our guy DP down here, and the Clemson Tigers. So I'll tell you what, that's the conversation we're going to have coming up here in just a second. Court's in session. Dalton Pence is going to make his case. Right after I tell you about our good friends at Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, just a couple days away, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You just pick more or less on at least two players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to, get this, 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks. They've even got free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes, you might have heard of him, only needs to throw 1 yard. Yes, 1 yard to win. So you probably want to hit the more on that. Pair that with one more correct pick and you're cashing out. And what do I love most? With Prize Picks, it's fast, it's safe when you get these withdrawals, and when you win, that cash is available in your account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tab to tail any and all of the super sweet Millie Winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, folks, here we go. Let's get into this with Mr. Dalton Pence leading the charge on a defense of the Louisville Cardinals, who have had a crazy turnaround from the past 2 years where they won a grand total of how many games, Dalton? 12?
12 games.
12 games in the Kenny Payne era. They have blown past that number this year, and now they are challenging, along with Clemson, for the second best team, that second seed in the ACC. It's hard to believe, especially given injuries to guys like Case and Pryor, but here we are. Dalton Pence, make the case for why Louisville is the second best team in the ACC.
I mean, yeah, I'll start out by saying that I really like this Clemson team. I think that they have a really good shooting, set of personnel. One thing is that I will say is that we've seen who won the game between these two teams. Louisville beat Clemson by 10 points. Probably could have been a little bit more if it wasn't for some garbage time buckets. But Louisville won the only matchup of the season. If you ask me if I'm taking Chase Hunter or Chucky Hepburn, I'm going to be biased and keep my red tinted glasses on. I'm going to tell you Chucky Hepburn, who I believe is right now the best point guard, true point guard in the ACC with the way that he's been playing and shouldering that load. But I mean, they just came off of a 10-game winning streak, albeit losing to Georgia Tech. I mean, they were due for a loss eventually. A 10-game winning streak isn't really a small sample size. You're talking about a third of the season in which 7 of the 8 wins in January were by double digits. 25 points at SMU. Almost all of the teams in the top half of the ACC, they beat in January. So, I mean, you're talking about a team that once they dealt with these injuries, right after all those injury news came out, they had Duke sort of in a good spot, same way that NC State did, but they kept it respectable. I will say this, though, Isaac. I am looking at this game this weekend because if Clemson does beat Duke, then I think it's really hard to argue against Clemson in that regard. I wouldn't really disagree either way, but where I sit to see what Louisville's doing against the top part of the ACC with a tougher schedule thus far than Clemson, I'm going to give the nod to the Cardinals.
Dalton is much too kind for me. I'll tell you what, I would have talked every bit of trash. You would have thought I was cutting a wrestling promo the way I said, when we play head-to-head, what happened? When we got on the court and we lined up against each other, what happened in that game?
The bravado's not needed, man. I just point to the score and say, scoreboard, bub.
And I was just about to say I 1,000% agree with everything you said there, particularly if Clemson can pull off the upset and beat Duke. That absolutely puts you in rarefied air because this Duke team is looking like a buzzsaw that has the Mario star power onto it too. Like this thing, they are just picking teams apart bit by bit. However you want it is however they'll give it to you. However you so do need, however you so do please, Duke is going to take care of you by the end of that game. And so if Clemson can come up with a way to beat Duke, I absolutely would say that they're the second best. But right now, I got to give it to my man Dalton and company. It's not just because he's here. It's not just because he's helping out my parlay. By the way, there was an under-over on 3.5 times, whether or not his Wi-Fi was going to go out 3.5 more. I took the under because I got faith in you, Dalton. I got faith in you. But in all seriousness, this game this weekend will go a long way in that. And also, keeping it respectable against Duke is another thing, right? Like, I know that we don't reward points for losses, but if we're having a very subjective conversation about which team we think is better or worse, obviously the head-to-head matters, similar opponents matter, and keeping it respectable against a very respectable opponent matters a ton in that conversation.
I like Louisville.
Go ahead, JJ.
I do like Louisville as the second best team. This is obviously before this Clemson game is played out. Looking at the ACC schedule for Duke and looking at the tear that the Cardinals were on prior to that Georgia Tech game, I was fortunate that Duke got that Louisville game out of the way in early December with the weird ACC schedule there because, Dalton, as you know, Duke goes on the road. Louisville kind of has them on the ropes a little bit, but then late in the second half, Malik Brown again kind of made some impact plays for Duke in that one. Cooper Flagg came over and made some big-time plays there. But what I've seen from Louisville, the shot-making ability that they have, and again, the fact that you've got one of your key players who tears his ACL before you really even get into ACC play, and you're still able to play as well as they have. That means something. I'm really impressed with what Pat Kelsey's been able to do in his first year. It's
not only been him. I mean, Corin Johnson was a projected starter. He played 2 games and hasn't played since, won't play for the rest of the year. A key rotational guy, Boubacar Traore, he went down the second game of the year and came back at the end of December. So, I mean, you couple everything together with what we've talked about. Pat Kelsey, he might not necessarily have the team that these other guys do. And I know that a lot of coaches, like the National Coach of the Year awards, goes to usually one of the better coaches on the best teams. But nobody had to take over what he did. He needs to be getting like top 3 at the very least National Coach of the Year consideration.
I can absolutely get behind that. Yeah.
I think he should be Coach of the Year. I don't think – who else? Who else? People
will say Pearl and Shire just because.
Oh, come on.
Well, they associate it with. I agree.
Being good on a team that was supposed to be good. For Shire.
But hang on. You can't ding a coach for being good at putting a roster together.
No, but what I'm trying to tell you is that's not usually the criteria for Coach of the Year. Is we're talking about exceeding expectations.
Look at all the coaches that won Coach of the Year, and I'm like, well, that guy had a top 5 team. That guy also had top 5. It's crazy because sitting here, you would think that it's exceeding expectations, but you look at the way that the voting has turned out, and it really just hasn't echoed that sentiment. And I'm like, well, damn, if this is the criteria, there's really only about 5 to 6 coaches that you could just look at the top of the AP poll for that.
But I don't think that we're looking at a situation that's kind of unprecedented. We haven't seen a coach walk into a Power 4 program that was as dilapidated, as run down, as just in the damn pits as Louisville was these last couple of years.
School.
Out of basketball school, might you add. Absolutely terrible. The Kenny Payne error was something tough to recover from. Most coaches, if you broke 500 after that, we would say, hey, we need to throw you a parade, okay? You need to be going down Main Street in Louisville. Hey, all right, we're doing the thing. But to see the way that he has them playing as not only one of the best teams in the ACC, let's just be honest. Does anybody think that they're not one of the top 20-ish teams in the nation? I don't think anybody would say they're outside of that. After what we saw the past few years, Kelsey absolutely needs consideration for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, when I'm looking at coach of the year,
not in the recent AP top 25.
When I'm looking at coach of the year, I'm looking at which coach has done the best job of coaching. And yes, Pearl at Auburn, he's done a great job, but he has fantastic players. He's had fantastic players. Pat Kelsey coming into a bad situation in just 1 year and potentially challenging for the top spot in the ACC. That is the best job of coaching. For me, that should be the coach of the year.
He also had to take a roster. Everyone's brand new.
Exactly.
And he had to get them to gel together. So it's not just about Louisville has all this talent now. It's also, well, they have all these new players. And I know that every team gets new players. I understand that. But Louisville, name me how many teams in the country had to completely remake the roster.
Well,
no. I'm not talking about losing 5 or 6. I'm talking about losing an entire team.
Okay, well, let me answer you then, Jackson. If you go about an hour east on I-64, Mark Pope's going to get a whole bunch of votes for the exact same reasons that
too.
In that case, I've had way too many arguments with Kentucky fans over this, and I'll keep it short. But I keep pointing back to, okay, what did Kentucky do last year? They were a 3 seed, and they choked. The year before that, sort of the same thing. Louisville hasn't made the tournament since 2019. I was a senior in college. I've been out of college for 5 years now. That's actually kind of sad, but 5 years now, and we haven't even sniffed the tournament. We haven't won a tournament game since 2017. Donovan Mitchell was on the court the last time Louisville won a tournament game.
Real?
Also, I would like to point out one thing. Louisville, I don't think that was as big of a choke job as people would give him for losing to Oakland. Oakland was a terribly underseeded team. And I said that going into the tournament last year. Hey, that's a game to watch out for because Oakland is better than everybody believes. And lo and behold, I mean, they showed up and showed out. But I'm just saying, I know that people don't think about the Horizon Conference
I just make that point to say that when you talk about Pat Kelsey, you try to diminish what he's done by, number one, claiming the ACC is down. Number two, claiming that they're not a top 10 team in the country. I say, well, like Jackson said, find me a situation that was worse that someone stepped into and exceeded this way. And so
we all win when Kentucky gets upset in the NCAA tournament. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's
JJ
great.
is Mr. Elite. I'll take it back. He's Mr.
That's great.
Well, same thing as Louisville and Duke playing early. I would like to see a Louisville Kentucky rematch today because I think that would be a very different ball game than it was back in December.
Can we just get more teams in the NCAA tournament though? That circle it here with the coaches coming in and that sort of thing. That's got to be a fun because everybody downing ACC basketball hurts the soul, guys. Like basketball is our bread and butter.
But every year is allegedly a down year for the ACC until the tournament happens.
No. This is especially a down year.
You're right, Casey.
It hasn't been like this.
I'm not disagreeing. But remember, Jackson, was last year not an especially down year for the ACC?
I agree with you, and the statistics back it up. I'm just telling you, I don't think it's been worse than what it is right now. I mean, we're talking about Duke is head and shoulders above everyone else. We got Clemson and Louisville are pretty good relative to the NCAA tournament field. And then who else after that? Three teams that we're talking about here.
My brother in Flying Spaghetti Monster, do you not realize that when people were talking about the ACC last year going into the tournament, all the talk was, you let some pudgy kid from Raleigh win, or some pudgy kid or some 4-time transfer from Raleigh win an ACC championship. What is this? Ew. Why can't RJ Davis and Armando Bacot do anything? They've been there for forever. Ew. What's going on at Duke? How did those losers not get it done? Ew. All of your blue bloods are down right now. That was the talk of the ACC going into the NCAA tournament last year. And then all of a sudden, we saw all of these ACC teams like, well, I'll be there. They keep winning. Right. Well, I'll be there. They keep winning. So I'm fine with this idea and this narrative that's being pushed that the ACC is so terrible. I'm not saying they're having a great year. Not going to lie and say that. But what I will say is, when you lace them up with the ACC, strange things tend to happen. Your team tends to end with
the other issue is that we did the ACC SEC challenge. We really don't want to go back to that now. Let's not talk about how that went.
Just do
that's going to be every year, and so we just buckle up and we got to get going with that. All right, boys, we got to get out of here. As Jackson said earlier, we are recording this before Tuesday and Wednesday nights ACC action happens. So if anything bonkers went down, you know it, we don't, and we'll talk about it next week. Saturday coming up, we do have decent slate, but clearly the game of the weekend is number 2 Duke at Clemson, 6 p.m. on ESPN. Gonna
Dickie
be
V on the call. Really excited that he's making his return.
Man, that is a good word, JJ. Yes, we're all excited for Dickie V to be on the call for that one. Inside Little John, Ken Palm favors the Blue Devils by 5. For Jackson Holzer from Locked On Syracuse, Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack, Grayson Boone, Locked On Wolfpack, JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils, DP back in the house. The internet held the whole time from Locked On Louisville. You love to see it.
In the tournament, baby.
For our guy behind the scenes, Jarvis Davis, and I'm Isaac Shade, host of Locked On Tar Heels. It's been great to be together. Make sure you hop in with us every week on ACC Squad, where we put to shame all the rest of those squad shows. Until next week, peace.